Headphone, welcome to the Empower Your Mind podcast, where we give you the best book summaries in minutes to nourish your mind and expand your horizons. Books. In each episode, we dive into a new book.
You ever feel completely swamped by all the eat this, not that advice? Especially when you try to factor in the planet.
Oh, absolutely. It's enough to make your head spin, right?
Totally. Well, that feeling hopefully ends right now. We've plunged into a pile of information, including a book called Going Green Foods, Everything You Need to Know About Green Agriculture, to pull out the really crucial and maybe surprising bits.
Right. Think of this as your cheat sheet, basically.
Exactly. Your shortcut to understanding how to make food choices that are, better for the environment.
Yeah, our mission here is really to cut through all that noise and get to the heart of what going green with food actually means. We'll try to untangle terms like organic and sustainable, explore why buying local or even, growing your own stuff matters.
Right.
And hopefully arm you with some straightforward tips you can actually use day to day.
Okay, so let's dive in. The book starts by illustrating what it means to go green with food, and it uses something super common, a burger and fries.
The classic example.
Yeah. Turns out the way a lot of that kind of food is made has some pretty serious environmental downsides. What's the big picture there?
Well, what's really eye-opening is the sheer scope of the problem. I mean, our sources detail some significant environmental consequences tied to industrial food production.
Like what specifically?
Well, take water pollution, for example. Agricultural chemicals, hormones, pesticides, even the stuff we use to fertilize plants. It can all wash into our water sources.
Okay.
And that leads to fish dying off and can even contaminate our drinking water.
And it creates these dead zones I've heard about. Can you explain what those are?
Absolutely. So nutrient runoff, especially from those plant fertilizers, flows into places like the Gulf of Mexico, the Chesapeake Bay.
Right.
It's like throwing a massive party for algae, causing these huge blooms. But then as the algae die and decompose, they suck all the oxygen out of the water.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, suffocating the fish and other marine life. It's a surprisingly widespread issue.
That sounds grim. And it's not just the water, is it? The book mentions air pollution, too.
That's right. Confined farm animals, like in big feedlots, release gases like sulfur dioxide, CO2, and ammonia into the atmosphere. And here's a statistic that kind of jumped out at me. About 40% of all the energy used in our industrial food system goes into producing those polluting plant foods and pesticides.
40%? That's huge.
It really is. It makes you think about the hidden energy costs behind our food.
Okay, so that paints a pretty clear and, frankly, concerning picture of the problems. Now, the book shifts to something a lot of us hear about as a solution. Buying local. What's the real environmental benefit there?
The key concept here is food miles, basically, the distance your food travels to get to you.
Right.
Purchasing local directly shrinks that distance. Our sources point out that, on average, produce in the U.S. travels a staggering 1,300 to 2,000 miles from the farm to your grocery store.
Wait, 2,000 miles?
Can be, yeah. Think about that. Your salad might have traveled further than your last cross-country flight.
Wow, that really puts it in perspective. So less travel means what, exactly? A smaller carbon footprint.
Exactly. Less travel means a smaller carbon footprint. All that transportation, trucks, planes, ships, burns a lot of fuel.
Right.
You can even find carbon footprint calculators online to sort of see the impact of your choices.
Interesting.
And beyond that, the book highlights that local produce, like, say, blueberries picked nearby, often just tastes better because it's fresher.
Makes sense.
And there can even be health perks, like some people find local honey potentially helps with seasonal allergies.
Oh, I've heard that. Now, the book also talks about why buying out-of-season produce can be surprisingly not so green. It uses tomatoes as an example. Why is that?
Yeah, this raises a fascinating point about our, year-round expectations for everything.
Right.
An out-of-season tomato, likely shipped from far away.
Like in the middle of winter.
Exactly. It's often picked green so it can survive the long journey without turning to mush. Then, it's often artificially ripened with a gas called ethylene in a warehouse somewhere.
Ethylene gas.
Yeah. And all that transportation and artificial ripening uses energy and pumps out more carbon emissions compared to a local in-season tomato that ripens naturally on the vine.
And presumably tastes better, too.
Well, yeah, the book notes that, too. Those vine-ripened tomatoes just taste better because they've had the sunshine they need to develop their flavor properly.
Okay, shifting gears a bit, the book digs into the difference between grass-fed and grain-fed beef. It sounds like there are environmental implications beyond just, what the cow eats.
Absolutely. There's a significant ecological advantage to grass-fed beef. generally speaking. These animals graze on pasture land. They're not confined to feedlots.
Okay.
Grain-fed beef, on the other hand, often relies on grains like soy and corn, which, interestingly, are heavily subsidized by the government.
Right, I've heard about corn subsidies.
Yeah, and while these grains help the animals grow quickly, get plump, they also require significant resources like water and fertilizers to produce, and there can be potentially higher risks of certain bacteria like E. coli.
And from a nutrition standpoint, for us, is there a big difference?
Well, research suggests that grass-fed beef often contains more beneficial nutrients, things like beta-carotene, vitamin E, and those omega-3 fatty acids.
Okay.
Plus, cows naturally evolved to eat grass. Environmentally, raising cattle on pasture eliminates the need for fertilizers and pesticides used to grow all those feed crops.
That makes sense.
And the practice of rotating cattle between pastures actually helps the land regenerate naturally. Their manure acts as a natural fertilizer, too.
Right, sort of a closed-loop system.
Kind of, yeah. More natural, certainly.
Okay. The book then tackles sustainable versus unsustainable salmon. This is something I've definitely seen labels for in the seafood section. What should we be looking for?
So, sustainable seafood at its core just means it's caught or farmed in a way that doesn't harm fish populations or their habitats in the long run.
Got it.
Wild Alaskan salmon is highlighted in the sources as a really good ecological choice because the populations are generally well managed, they're not overfished, and the fishing methods tend to have minimal negative impact on the surrounding environment.
But farmed salmon seems to have some environmental baggage, according to the book. What are the main concerns there?
Yeah, farmed Atlantic salmon specifically can create a sort of cascade of environmental problems. The sheer number of fish crammed into these ocean pens leads to a huge buildup of fecal matter, basically fish waste. And it increases the risk of diseases spreading among the farmed fish.
Which can then spread to wild fish.
Exactly. Since these farms are often located right in the ocean, that waste and those diseases can easily spread to wild populations swimming nearby.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, and there's also the potential for chemicals and hormones used in the farms to leak out into the surrounding waters. In really severe cases, the book even mentions the decomposition of the ocean floor directly beneath the farms because of all the accumulated waste.
Yikes. Okay, so less intensive, more natural methods seem to be the greener route generally, which leads us nicely to organic agriculture. What exactly does organic mean when it comes to food production?
Right. Organic farming aims to minimize environmental impact through a specific set of practices. The book really emphasizes key methods like crop rotation, which is huge for soil health, using compost for natural fertilization instead of synthetic chemicals, and using biological pest control like introducing beneficial insects instead of synthetic pesticides.
So rotating crops helps the soil how?
Well, by rotating different types of crops, farmers can naturally replenish nutrients in the soil and also disrupt pest and disease cycles, which reduces the need for those artificial inputs.
Okay, so organic is definitely a step towards going green. But then the book introduces sustainable agriculture. Are these terms interchangeable or?
Not quite, although they definitely share a lot of the same goals and often overlap. Sustainable agriculture is generally considered a broader concept.
Broader how?
It's defined as producing food, fiber, and other agricultural products using farming practices that protect the environment, public health, human communities, and animal well-being.
Okay, that's a lot.
It is. And the key part is doing all that without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs.
So sustainable is maybe more of a holistic philosophy, and organic is a specific set of certified practices within that. Is that fair?
That's a pretty good way to put it, yeah. The book outlines the core benefits of sustainable agriculture, which kind of covers those points. Environmental conservation, so avoiding toxic pesticides, synthetic fertilizers, GMOs, practices that degrade soil and water, and promoting biodiversity.
Right.
Then there's care of public health, so safer produce, healthier animal raising without routine antibiotics, responsible manure management, maintaining vibrant communities, meaning economically viable farms, fair working conditions, boosting local economies.
Okay.
And finally, carrying on animal welfare, so treating animals with care and respect, pasture-based raising that allows natural behaviors.
Got it. Now let's zoom back in on organic agriculture specifically. The book mentions it operates on some core principles. What are those?
Yeah, what's fundamental to organic farming is this holistic, ecologically balanced approach. It's really all about nurturing healthy soil through natural methods.
Like the compost and crop rotation we mentioned.
Exactly. And using that crop rotation to manage nutrients and pests naturally, relying on natural pest control methods. The whole idea is to work with nature's processes rather than trying to, force outcomes with a lot of synthetic inputs.
And it's not just fruits and veggies that can be organic, right? I see organic meat and milk too.
That's absolutely right. You can find a wide range of organic products, vegetables, grains, meat, dairy, eggs, even things like cotton or coffee.
Right.
The key is that they all adhere to those specific farming practices.
Yeah.
No synthetic pesticides or fertilizers on crops, no synthetic hormones or routine antibiotics in livestock. The animals have to be fed organic feed, and crucially, they have to be provided with access to the outdoors. The book even touches on how much organic farming has grown in the U.S., becoming a much bigger part of our food supply.
Now, this is where I think a lot of us get tripped up. The difference between something labeled natural and something that's organic. The book really tries to clear up that confusion.
And it's such a critical distinction to understand. The book makes it crystal clear. Natural is not the same as organic.
Okay, how so?
Well, the term organic has really strict standards and is backed by a rigorous certification process overseen by the USDA, the U.S. Department of Agriculture.
Right, the little green seal.
Exactly. Natural, on the other hand, while the regulations are much looser and less clearly defined, especially for processed foods. It often just means minimally processed and no artificial ingredients. But it doesn't say much about how it was grown or raised.
Okay, so what are some of the specific hoops then that a farmer has to jump through to get that official certified organic label on their fruits, vegetables, and grains?
It's pretty involved. For fruits, vegetables, and grains to be certified organic, the book explains they have to be grown in soil that's been free of prohibited substances. Think sewage sludge, certain synthetic chemicals, heavy metals for at least 3 years before the harvest.
3 years?
Yeah. They also can't be genetically engineered or irradiated or contain artificial additives. Plus, they have to be kept completely separate from any non-organic products during storage and handling to prevent any kind of contamination.
And what about for meat, milk, and eggs? Because I definitely see those natural labels on chicken and stuff all the time.
Exactly. And that's where it gets confusing for people. For certified organic animal products, the rules are also quite specific. The animals must be raised organically from a very young age.
Like how young?
For livestock, it's from the last third of gestation, and for poultry, no later than their second day of life.
Okay.
They absolutely have to be fed 100% certified organic feed, no exceptions, and they can't be given any growth hormones or routine antibiotics.
What if they get sick?
Good question. If an animal gets sick, it absolutely must be treated. But if a prohibited medication is used for that treatment, the animal or its products just can't be sold as organic afterwards.
Gotcha.
And importantly, they must have access to the outdoors that includes grazing land for ruminants, plus shade, shelter, fresh air, sunshine, room to move naturally. And they can't be mixed in or commingle with non-organic animals. One other thing the book points out is that actually using the USDA organic label is voluntary. So you might find some smaller farmers at, say, a farmer's market who follow all the organic practices but haven't gone through the potentially expensive certification process.
So it's worth asking them directly about their methods.
Definitely. Talking to farmers is always a good idea.
That's really good to know. Now, the book moves on to something many of us can actually do right now, potentially, growing our own food. What are the major benefits there, beyond just the bragging rights of saying you grew it yourself?
Oh, there are a surprising number of benefits highlighted. From a health perspective, homegrown organic produce often has higher levels of minerals and nutrients.
Really? Higher nutrients?
Often, yeah. And many chefs swear it simply tastes better. The book emphasizes this connection that healthy living soil leads to healthier, more flavorful food for us.
That makes intuitive sense.
And of course, there's the potential to save some money on your grocery bill, depending on what you grow.
Always a plus.
Yeah.
And what about the environmental pluses of having a little garden, even a small one?
Oh, they're considerable. First off, growing your own food drastically reduces your exposure to potentially harmful pesticides, which the book notes is especially important for children as they have higher exposure levels relative to their body weight.
Okay.
It also touches on the critical issue of soil health. Conventional farming can sometimes treat soil just as a medium to hold plants up while feeding them chemicals. But organic gardening focuses on building healthy soil structure and life. And the book notes the U.S. actually has a pretty high rate of topsoil erosion, which healthy soil practices help combat.
And it helps water quality too, I assume. Less runoff.
Exactly. Less pesticide and fertilizer runoff polluting streams and groundwater. The book mentions EPA estimates about pesticide contamination in groundwater, which is a primary source of drinking water for many people. Plus, you save energy. Think about it. You cut out all the energy used in industrial farming, processing, packaging, and long-distance transportation. Modern farming uses a lot of crude oil, especially for synthetic fertilizer production.
I just really thought about the energy component that way.
Yeah, it adds up. And the book also reiterates the potential health risks of pesticides beyond just residue, mentioning links found over time between some approved pesticides and serious issues like cancer or nerve damage.
Wow.
And then on a different note, things like community gardens can really beautify neighborhoods and build a sense of community pride.
Okay, so if someone's feeling inspired now to get their hands dirty and start a green garden, where should they even begin? Does the book offer some starting advice?
It really emphasizes that it all starts with the foundation, healthy soil. You can't have healthy plants without healthy soil.
Right, makes sense.
So the book details several key organic gardening strategies for improving and maintaining soil quality. Animal manure is a classic from things like chickens, cows, horses. It's a fantastic natural fertilizer.
Okay.
Compost is another gold mine. You can make it from your own kitchen scraps, coffee grounds, veggie peels, and yard waste like grass clippings and leaves.
I've tried composting. It's pretty cool.
It really is. It enriches the soil, encourages all those beneficial bacteria and fungi, helps the soil hold moisture better, and seriously reduces your need for chemical fertilizers.
What else besides manure and compost?
Cover crops are mentioned. These are plants grown specifically to protect the soil from erosion, especially over winter, and to maintain its structure and organic matter. Farmers pick specific ones based on their soil's needs. And then there are green manures, which are basically cover crops that are grown specifically to add nutrients back into the soil. You just grow them and then till them right back in.
Interesting.
And of course, crop rotation is just as important in a home garden as it is on a larger farm, even if it's just rotating where you plant your tomatoes each year.
The book also mentions that some of these soil building techniques can actually help with pesky weeds and pests too. How does that work?
Exactly. Cover crops, for example, can act as a natural weed barrier simply by taking up space and outcompeting the weeds before they get established.
Like a living mulch.
Kind of, yeah. And certain cover crops, or even just planting flowers like marigolds, can attract beneficial insects, think ladybugs, that eat aphids, which gives you a built-in natural form of pest control rather than reaching for a spray.
Very clever. Now, for those of us who might not have the space or, frankly, the greenest thumb, the book offers advice on finding farmers in our area who are using these greener methods. Where should we look?
Farmers markets are presented as really your best bet because you get that direct connection. You can talk right to the people who grew your food. You can ask them directly about their farming practices. Do you spray? Are you certified organic? What do you use for fertilizer? And often you can even sample the produce right there.
Yeah, I love that about farmers markets. The atmosphere, too.
Totally. The book really emphasizes that vibrant, community-focused atmosphere you often find at markets these days. They're getting more popular.
And what are the real advantages of buying there? Beyond just, supporting local businesses, which is great in itself.
Well, you're directly reducing those food miles we talked about earlier.
Right.
Significantly.
Right.
You're ensuring more of your money goes straight into the farmers' pockets, not to middlemen. And you're supporting local agriculture, which helps preserve green spaces and farmland in your community instead of it becoming, another strip mall.
Good point. Does the book give any practical tips for using farmers markets effectively?
It does. It suggests using websites like localharvest.org or the USDA's own Farmers Market Finder map. We can link those to locate markets near you.
Okay.
It also suggests comparing prices with the supermarket. Sometimes you find amazing deals at the market, sometimes not, but it's good to know.
Sure.
Definitely bring your own reusable bags, both the big canvas or cloth ones, and maybe some smaller mesh or plastic bags for produce.
Good tip.
And maybe make it a fun outing for the whole family. Lots of markets have music, maybe food stalls making breakfast or lunch, sometimes even games for kids.
Yeah, turn it into an event.
Exactly.
So we've covered a lot. Wow. From the problems with industrial food to the benefits of local, organic, and homegrown options. The book wraps things up with some final actionable tips for incorporating greener eating into our daily lives. What are some of those key takeaways?
Yeah, these final tips really focus on making conscious choices about the everyday staples, the things you buy frequently, like milk, bread, eggs. That's where small changes can add up.
Makes sense. What's a big one?
A really big one is prioritizing seasonal, local food whenever possible. We've touched on why it cuts down on shipping emissions, often means less packaging.
Right.
The food is usually fresher and more flavorful. You often get more variety through the seasons, and you're directly supporting your local growers.
And farmers markets and CSAs are the best places for that.
Generally, yes. Farmers markets and CSAs, that's community-supported agriculture, where you often pay upfront for a share of a farm's harvest through the season. Those are presented as your best resources for finding truly local food.
Okay. What are some other practical changes we can make?
Reducing packaging waste is another really impactful step. Try to choose unpackaged fruits and veggies or things with minimal packaging.
Bring your own containers to stores that allow it.
Yes. Bring your own reusable containers or bags. Buy things like grains or nuts in bulk if you can. Look for brands that are using more sustainable, bio-based packaging. And, of course, reuse or recycle whatever packaging you do end up with.
And compost.
Yes. Embracing the entire life cycle of food by composting your leftovers is huge. It keeps food waste out of landfills, where it produces methane, a potent greenhouse gas, and it creates fantastic nutrient-rich soil for your garden, or even just for potted plants if you live in an apartment. There are small-scale composting options now.
Okay. What else?
Supporting local sellers in general, not just for food, but local shops and businesses. That also helps reduce transportation emissions, fuel use, and traffic overall.
Good point.
Planning your meal portions to minimize food waste is also key. Trying not to over-prepare perishable things that might go bad before you eat them. Maybe share extras with neighbors. And the book also mentions considering the lower energy footprint of preparing raw foods, since they don't require cooking energy, and they often tend to be things like salads or fruits that are more likely to be locally sourced anyway.
Interesting thought. And finally, the book touches on a topic that can feel a bit daunting for some. Reducing meat consumption. What's the environmental argument there?
Yeah, it's a big one environmentally. The book highlights that meat production, especially industrial-scale meat production, is incredibly resource-intensive.
How so?
It requires vast amounts of water, grain feed, which itself requires land and water to grow and land for grazing or feedlots, plus other inputs. It has a really significant environmental impact on our soil, air, and water quality.
Is there like a comparison?
Yeah, the book gives one stark example. It takes around 12,000 gallons of water to produce just 1 pound of beef.
12,000.
Yeah, compared to only about 60 gallons for a pound of potatoes.
Wow, that's a massive difference.
It really is. So the book suggests maybe starting small if you're interested, perhaps just committing to one meatless meal per week, like Meatless Monday.
Right.
And it does mention that choosing to follow a fully vegetarian or vegan diet is seen by many as a deeply significant and impactful environmental choice, given the resource intensity of meat.
So it really kind of boils down to being more aware, doesn't it? More conscious of the impact of our food choices at every single stage, from the farm to the store to our plate and even to our compost bin afterwards.
Absolutely. That's the core message. Eating green, or maybe eating greener, is presented as this powerful and impactful daily act. It has ripple effects far beyond our own personal health. It really contributes to the health of the entire planet.
It's actually really inspiring when you think about that bigger picture, isn't it?
Right.
Like when we choose organic or local or just waste less, we're not just choosing food for ourselves. We're supporting healthier ecosystems,
Yeah.
maybe safer working conditions for farm workers, the protection of our land, our water, our air, allowing wildlife to thrive too.
Exactly. So whether you're choosing organic vegetables or fruits or grains, juice, dairy, eggs, meat, whatever it is, you're making a choice that supports both your own well-being and ultimately a healthier Earth.
It really underscores how interconnected everything is, our food choices and the environment.
It truly does. And perhaps it leaves you thinking about, what's the next small change you could maybe make in your own kitchen or shopping routine.